Well, welcome to the Heart of the Black Madonna YouTube channel with me, your host, Stephanie Georgiev. Thank you so much for sharing your valuable time with me, and a special thanks to my Patreon supporters who make this channel possible. Please see the link below to find out how you can participate as well as receive special benefits for all levels of support. At the time of this recording and posting, the United States Annual Celebration Month for American Hispanic Heritage Month is drawing to a close. Through my podcast, The Black Madonna Speaks, and my blog, along with this channel, we've been exploring the many ways that Hispanic heritage has influenced the phenomena of the Black Madonna over a large segment of the world since the Middle Ages. For this video, I will be exploring an interesting collection of Black Madonnas in the Guipuzcoa region of northern Spain. In the heart of Basque Country, just west of the border with France, the region of Guipuzcoa is rich in history and also home to a unique collection of Black Madonnas. The proper name for this collection is the Seven Black Spanish Virgins. This collection of 7 Black Madonnas is a bit hidden to those of us outside of the region, and much of the scholarship and folklore is in Basque. And I want to give credit to those wonderful tourist bureau people as well as regional religious sites. That is where I got most of the information for this video. I had scheduled a workshop retreat for my planned Camino de Santiago de Compostela tour back before the pandemic, but that had to be canceled due to my father's last illness. But hope reigns eternal that I can organize a tour at some time in the next few years. Stay tuned for details. The Guipuzcoa region is very interesting in terms of history. This area of the Iberian Peninsula was the only place that the Arab invasions did not occur or occupy starting in the 8th century, as they did in other places. Before and during the Moorish occupation, there were many kingdoms on the peninsula. The main ones in this area were Leon, Navarre, which is now the municipality of Guipuzcoa, Aragon, Castilla, Asturias, and Galicia. Along the area where the main Camino and northern coastal Camino are located, never fell to the Muslim armies. This region is quite mountainous, which may be one reason. The other is that the monarchies and people of the region were quite adept at warfare. One person in particular, which I feel his story would be really great miniseries on some cable channel, is Alfonso the Battler, who lived between 1073 and 1134. This king was from Aragon and Navarra, which were combined kingdoms during his reign. The reason I think his life would make a great miniseries is his married life. In his Wikipedia entry, the experience is titled Matrimonial Conflicts. Quite a confirmed bachelor by medieval standards, Alfonso's main love was, well, battles or wars, hence the title he was given during his lifetime. He is reported to have regularly slept in his armor, which would obviously make sexual intercourse a bit difficult. Hence, he had no heirs. He married Queen Urraca of Leon when he was 30 years old, which was ancient by medieval lifetime standards, mainly so he could claim this kingdom as his own. Urraca apparently was more stubborn than Alfonso and married him for his kingdoms. This is interesting because they obviously got married for the same reasons, but neither would bend to the other. I would say Urraca was quite brave because her husband was notoriously violent in general, but he never physically harmed her. Their arguments were loud, epic, and well documented. Alfonso fought in 29 separate battles against the Moors. He fought with the Templars, who participated in the reconquest of the Iberian Peninsula. As stated before, Alfonso's bedtime outfits and general disdain for his wife meant that he had no heirs from this marriage. Alfonso actually put in his will that his kingdom would be bequeathed, his lands, all of them, to the three knightly orders of the Hospitallers, the Knights Templar, and the Knights of the Holy Sepulchre. Scholars theorize that Alfonso did this also to diminish the influence of the papacy on this region of Europe, because all of these orders were independent. But obviously, he did not want his wife or her children from prior marriages to have anything. Obviously, the nobles, as well as his wife, were none too happy to learn of the situation during the reading of the will, and challenged the will, making his succession worthy of another mini-series. The Templars were the only order interested in the land, as the other two were quite well established in the Holy Land. The Pope intervened and split the kingdoms up, giving the northern part of the land to the Templars. This region is where the Camino is located, with many Templar castles, shrines, and Black Madonnas they brought from the Holy Land as testament to their presence. Esoterically, this region was home to the ancient Jupiter mysteries, and starting in the 9th century, became quite famous for pilgrimages. The gateway to this region is through Navarre, or Basque country, where the 7 Black Spanish virgins reside. An old legend speaks of 7 Black virgins who left the hermitage of San Sebastian de Ataun to settle in as many other hermitages in the Guipuzcoa region. The Indura Luis Pedro Peña Santiago wrote a book entitled The 7 Black Virgins of Guipuzcoa, in which he states the old hermitage of San Sebastian in Atan could have been near the Otas Deli farmhouse. I have tried to find a copy of this book, but to no avail. Hopefully, I will be able to locate a copy of a Basque translation when I get to visit this region. And here is a brief overview of these images, some of which have been stolen or lost to the sands of history, but their memory is eternal thanks to pictures of the originals. And again, I got most of this information from Guipuzcoa travel information, as well as Catholic sites for the region. Now, this is the Virgin of Arata. This image dates to the late 13th or early 14th century. So it was made during the transition from Romanesque to Gothic, and it is the only image prior to the 16th century that bears the title of the Immaculate Conception. It is a polychrome wood carving that represents the Virgin Mary with a child sitting on her lap who carries a book in her left hand while blessing with her right. The Virgin holds a fruit in her right hand, and the carving has a hollow on the back of it. This Virgin has her own legend. According to the legend, she appeared to a shepherd, and the inhabitants of the region decided to erect a basilica in her honor. Due to the geographical location in the region, which is very mountainous, far from the urban center, it was decided to build the church in Azitane, the most appropriate place. But when the works had begun, every night the Virgin appeared in the form of an angel and moved all the construction materials back down the hill. Now, she obviously got some help by oxen, and she made 3 stops along the way. And this way is known as the Paseos de la Virgen de Arate, which is currently marked with 3 small shrines. And I just think that's amazing. But these Black Madonnas in the northern Spanish area are quite strong and very, very determined. Now, the next image is considered the Virgin of the Choir. And this is a beautiful sculpture from the 15th and 16th centuries. It's 40 centimeters tall and carved in wood. And the head is obviously crowned. She is standing, and the Christ child has one of his hands to his mouth. And it's striking how this image is very similar to Donatello's Virgins. The image was placed at the current altarpiece in 1750 and was covered in silver in 1756. And a lot of Black Madonnas are images that are gilt in silver, and it oxidizes and they turn black. Now, there are many origin stories for this image, and she's also a supernatural being with many, many powers and likes to go certain places that people don't think she wants to go, but she goes anyway. And basically, she was over the choir in a local church, and there was a very pious person that went to church every day, and he felt such devotion for this image that he wanted to take it home. And so one day he entered the choir and he put the image into a bag under his cape and went to the door of the church. But every time he approached the door, he couldn't move. He became paralyzed. And because he was just frozen in space, there were priests who arrived at the hour of Vespers, and seeing that he was immobilized, but he had such great devotion for this image, they were inspired by his posture, and they decided to place the image on the main altar of the church. And even though she's called the Virgin of the Choir, she's now on the main altar of this church. Now, this image doesn't look black, I know, but sometimes these images are actually painted over in later years. Now, the Virgin of Itzaar, excuse my California accent. This is one of the 7 Black Virgins of the region, and she is located next to the coastal path, the northern coastal route of Santiago de Compostela. And she is very much venerated because she's a protective virgin and guide for the walkers and the pilgrims. The carving is Gothic, and it's dated from the 12th to 13th century. Now, she has a marvelous legend that she was found by a village girl in a patch of black thorns. And the Virgin was speaking to her, this little girl who found her in this patch of black thorns, that she wanted a sanctuary to be built for her in the same place for her and her son. But the land was steep and difficult to build, so the neighbors wanted to do it in another, a flatter area. But as with our other Madonna, other Black Madonna of this region, she kept relocating the stones. They put in the foundation stones in the flatter meadow, and she would move the stones to the more rugged location. There's another legend with her that a local son of the region was imprisoned in a prison in Buenos Aires because he was accused falsely of the crime of some sort of robbery, and he was condemned to death. And it was on the eve of his death, of his execution, but it was also on the feast of Our Lady, which is the first Sunday in June. And this eve of his execution, the next morning he woke up under this huge elm tree that was next to the church where the original image was housed. This church no longer exists, but next to him was a boat which had been miraculously transported to the region where he woke up, and he was able to escape his execution because he was innocent. And the boat is still preserved in the newly built Church of the Virgin of Itziar. So I think that's a great legend. All sorts of mini series could be made from these incredible legends and historical figures in this area. Now, this is another Black Madonna that has been painted white, but she originally was Black. And this is the Virgin of Yungkal. And this is the oldest Marian image in Guipuzcoa, and probably the entire region. Now, her shrine is in Irun, which is a wonderful destination if you ever want to take the northern coastal route. Irun is a staging area. And her church is called the Church of Our Lady of Yungkal, or Iglesia Nuestra Señora de Yungkal. The church owes its name to the discovery of this carved image of the Virgin, and she also, like one of her sisters, was in the reeds growing along the banks of a water estuary in about the year about 1400s. Construction began on the current building in the 16th century, where she's located. The church has an open plan with 3 naves and an apse, and the tower stands at the foot of the building. And what's interesting is the interior, the altarpiece of the Virgin of Yungkal is a 17th century work. And it was declared, this shrine was declared a National Historical and Artistic Monument in 1973. Now, the Virgin de Yungkal has a long history. Now, while her carving is typically Romanesque, it's very typical of this period. And she's a throned virgin, as you can see. The child is seated on her lap. And this is also an image of a wisdom on her throne. This was restored in 2007 when local artists thought it would be a good idea to make her lighter in color. But before this time, her face was definitely Black. As I said before, it was found in 1400s along the rushes of the Bidasoa River. But art and religious historians think that it's actually 200 years. This was nearly 200 years when it was discovered. And it's certain that this came by sea. Some ship brought it, probably some Basque crusaders returning from the Crusades, and it may have been at the top of the bow and fell off the ship when it ran ashore. And fishermen found her afterwards. And according to tradition, when the fishers found her, they thought of building a church in a higher area. And as a tradition with all these Guipuzcoa Black Madonnas, they think they need to build these churches in a different area. And the Black Madonnas beg to differ. And they bring back the building materials. And hers is quite the story. Apparently, during the building of the church in the higher area, all the materials during the day were mysteriously transported at night to the original bed where the Virgin had been discovered. And no one could figure out how this was happening. So they put a guard on the building materials that had been hauled up the hill, and had it a night watch, but he was blinded in the middle of the night, dazzled by the sparkling light that transcended from a mysterious cart, which descended loaded with all of the stones and building materials. And apparently there was some oxen that aided this, and they were guided by a sweet voice which said, Aida Turquillo, Aida Gorico, which is Basque. And apologies to all our Basque listeners for my horrific translation and accent. But the Basque translation of this chant was make way for the white, make way for the red. And the Virgin is very popular in Mexico, and she's also featured in a lot of the colonial art of Central and South America. Now, this Virgin is the Virgin of Zabale, and this is a carving of wood from the 13th and 14th centuries. And she's in the Bedonia neighborhood. And as you can see, she's a crowned image with the oval face. And she has a cloak about her that reaches almost to her feet. There's not a lot known about this Virgin. She's seated in the position of holy wisdom. But she's a little bit different in that she is protecting the child. Usually the wisdom Madonnas have their hands at the side or on their knees, but she has her hand on the shoulder, and the infant has a book, and he's blessing the faithful with his right hand. Now, this image is the Virgin of Zabaleta, and her story is like many of these images. She was brought back from the Holy Land and essentially put into a private collection. And this is a carving from the 14th century, and it's original from the Hermitage of San Juan, and is now on the grounds of the Zabaleta farmhouse, which is a pilgrim destination along the northern coastal route. And she's 110 centimeters. Now, from the 12th century to the present, the family has maintained and cared for the Hermitage of San Juan for the pilgrims along the north Camino de Santiago. And at some point, they acquired this image of the Black Virgin, and is known since they acquired to her as the Virgin of Zabaleta. And as I said before, during medieval times, this was a hostel for pilgrims, and it was also a hospital. And travelers from all walks of life, including royalty, they always visited this Black Virgin. And she had a shrine in Erextu, but it is in ruins currently, and that's why she's now in a private collection. This image is the Virgin of Zikunagia, and she is the patron saint of Hernani. Now, this figure is Gothic from the 13th century and is definitely a Black Madonna. And she's one that's also thought to have been brought by a Crusader knight who was returning from the Crusades. And she was in a hermitage on the road from Hernante to Gositea, but she was stolen in April of 1979. And before she was stolen, her altar was known to be visited by sickly children who were seeking cures to their ailments. And unfortunately, we don't know where she is right now, but her memory reigns eternal. And thankfully, there are pictures of her. So we can see, this is one of the modern shrines to one of the 7 Black Virgins. It's quite beautiful. And I have a link below this video to a wonderful travel video of this incredible shrine that was built in 1950. And I think it's this unique combination of medieval and mid-century architecture. It's quite stunning. I've never been there, but I really want to visit, and I recommend you click on the link below to see this incredible thing. So we can see from my very brief overview, thanks to Gui Puzkoa and local Catholic websites for their information. So thanks to them. But we can see that these images are all quite interesting and reflect quite a bit of history, not only of the region, but the evolution of Christianity in this part of the world. So I want to thank you again for sharing this exploration with me. This is the coast along the northern coastal route in this region. And I will see you next time when we look at another aspect of the Black Madonna. Blessings to you all on your journey of the soul.